welcome to week 3 of Communicating in Crisis. And beyond, the emphasis as we move forward will be on and beyond as we think about how to prepare for recovery. The first week and the second week, which are available on YouTube, and all are available on our website. It's idealmarketingcompany.co.uk and then /crisis-communications. That's where you can find all the information about future webinars in the series, anywhere to book, sign up for email news updates, and then at the very end there is a playlist with the YouTube videos there as well. The first week was really talking about how to manage expectations and how to modify how you might be communicating at this time, because people feel icky about promoting themselves when a lot of people are struggling. So this week's episode very much dips into how to continue to communicate and promote and build relationships online. Part of the reason why that's so important right now is because people are finding that their traditional communications are moving from maybe a lot more in-person stuff, meetings, to almost completely online. So managing that online presence is more important than ever. I've also got a special guest with me this week, Laura Ann Williams, who's a social media expert. I love everything that she's been saying online at the moment about how to manage particularly your social media presence within that whole area. So we're going to hear from her as well. And I'll go through some basic tips and a bit of a presentation, and then we'll talk through the social media elements. So this is the structure for today. Thank you very much for everybody who's filled out the poll. It really helps to inform what the future of these will look like. Here's an outline about what we're going to cover. So your online presence and what it does and does not include. This includes social media, but it's not only social media. Some things that you can do to just do a bit of housekeeping. How to manage your relationships online, types of posts, finding inspiration, and do's and don'ts, which Laura Ann will be heavily contributing to, but I very much would like your input at any point where it pops up, Laura Ann. Also, questions. There's a Q&A section. This won't be posted to YouTube. The reason for this is so that you can feel that you can ask questions anonymously and feel that it's only the people here who are going to see. It's not going to be on YouTube forever. But also, I think you should only benefit from a Q&A if you turn up to the webinar itself. So that's something that's a special bonus just for you guys. The resource afterwards, won't necessarily be any links unless we say that there will be or anything like that, but the videos will be available, and I will circulate that to everybody who's registered today afterwards. You can also view the rest of the series. I've mentioned before, it's idealmarketingcompany.co.uk /crisis communications. And at the end, I'll tell you what I expect the next one to be. So welcome, Laura Ann. I know Laura Ann from networking that I do with the business community. She has always been she's been a very positive voice in the community, and really, really positive. So that's the reason why I wanted her to be here today. She talks about she does social media coaching, well, you can see here, social media management on your behalf, content creation, and I think it's always nice to know what some of these hobbies are. I think in particular, later on this afternoon, is it, Laura Ann? And what have you got? You've got a content ideas with Paul Green.
That is happening next Thursday at 3 p.m. So that's one of the business community bulletins, but it's available for everybody, so it doesn't have to be members. So if anybody,
I'll share a link with to the video afterwards. So fantastic. In particular, I've seen what Laura Ann's going to share in that, and it is a really valuable exercise to do, a kind of a creative exercise. It's well worth coming in for. So I said that we're going to start with maybe having a bit of having awareness of what your online presence is. And traditionally you might have just thought it would be your website, but it is about so much more now. In fact, your website can just feel like a brochure almost. Your online presence can include Google My Business, which a lot of people forget. When we think about search engine optimization, for example, a lot of the way that somebody might find your business is when they search and they don't even get to your website. Google My Business, which is the little square that you see particularly for restaurants, has got all the information. It's almost like Google is trying to stop people from getting to your website by giving your phone number, your email address, and how to book with you and your opening times. So that's something to do a bit of housekeeping with, make sure that everything is correct. Any temporary closures, for example, you can put on there, and often it has images attached with it. you could also post from Google My Business. I'm not sure if that's something that you consider to be within the social media remit, Laura.
It's not something that I have taken advantage of yet myself, but I mean, it could potentially fall under social media.
Yeah, for me it kind of crosses it's one of those weird crossing over, because if you post from Google My Business, then it does a lot to help your search engine optimization on a local basis. But it's where really they could overlap quite well, because you are also still managing your reputation as well, and you could post the things that you're sharing to social media generally. So that's something to consider. Obviously your social media, which we're going to go into in a bit more depth, you could be featured for article pictures, for example. If you've ever had an article posted somewhere, then that also is part of your online presence. YouTube, which is social media as well, or dependent on how you look at it, but it's what the second most popular search engine in the world. So anything that's on YouTube, and then directories.
And it's owned by Google as well, so you get brownie points.
Absolutely, yeah. Which is part of the reason why these are posted to YouTube, of course. So, and then there's directories. So a little bit of housekeeping before we talk about your activities ongoing, and this is a real opportunity for you to tidy things up if anything needs tidying. So search your name and your company name. This can be horrifying, or it can be delightful. It really does depend. I then following links and see where they go, and see if you're happy with what's there. It's quite interesting. Sometimes there might be profiles that you thought were private and weren't private, whether that's SoundCloud, Instagram, or things like that, things that you made maybe a long time ago, your first ever MySpace page, or whatever. So it's worth having a bit of a look. There's also image search, and I'm going to show you an example of an image search. So this is my name, and often I remember when I was going through dating, I would just hope to God that they weren't going to search my name and come across this lot, because I used to run an e-commerce company selling hair products to redheads. I used to run Redhead Day UK, and as a consequence there's a lot of photos of me with silly things like a ginger pride t-shirt up on YouTube. There's also a lot of Halloween costumes for redheads, including one that comes up before. I come up before Kim Kardashian if you do an image search for redhead Halloween costumes, which is a bit of a claim to fame. So have a look. So image search, this is, you wouldn't just see that if you just searched your name. You'd have to go into the image column, which is at the top of Google. So include that in your searches to see where you might be popping up. You can then click through the image to see where it's featured, and then have a look at whether you want to have it removed. One of the main ways that we do most of our media monitoring is to set up Google Alerts. Now, the easiest way to find Google Alerts is to Google Alerts, and then it will take you to an engine. If you then log in with whatever your Google profile is, you can set up an alert where you put in a word or a phrase that you would like to be notified when that word or that phrase is added to Google's index. So the Google index is constantly updated. Google is kind of crawling the web to find new content to add, and this facility means that anytime there is anything new, you will get an email to be told. So there are lots of settings in there. You can make it so that it's more sensitive or less sensitive. You can make it so that the alert, maybe the email is one a week with a summary, or as it happens, or once a day, and you can modify things. At the very least, I would recommend doing it for your own name and for the company name. Every time we have a new client, we set up Google Alerts for them. What we also do is to set up a Google Alert for subjects related to anything that we have to produce content for. So if there's a particular industry and we know that we have to write blog posts and stuff like that, then that's a really helpful way to find content that you could either use for social media posts, you repurpose for your own blog, or tools that you want to be aware of as they come out, because they're going to affect you or your clients. So Google Alerts is a really powerful thing. There's also media monitoring tools. They can be very expensive. Do you have anything on the way of social media monitoring tools? Is there anything that you would recommend, Lauren?
Loomly is quite good. It's not cheap, but it's not the most expensive one either. A lot of them are now coming up with content suggestions. So you've got Meet Edgar.
Oh yeah.
Later we'll come up with trends for you. Post Fitty, every month they have a calendar that they put up, and Plan actually is a very good one, particularly for Instagram. So that's PLANN, and they come up with a monthly calendar with little social media prompts for you. So that's and you don't have to sign up for it to get that. Just pop onto their website.
Excellent. Okay, brilliant tools. So there's also do a social media audit. Are you proud of your profiles? Do the images need resizing and re-uploading, and are you using all of the functions? I think I don't know how frequently, Lauren, they seem to change the size of profile pictures or cover pictures and adding functions. It happens it feels like quite frequently.
Yeah, I'd certainly do at least a monthly audit. Make sure and check your profile and how it looks on your mobile as well as on a desktop, because most people will be actually searching on their mobiles. I think that at the moment it's like a 97% of people will be looking on their mobile. Particularly for social media, yeah.
There is also, are you using all the functions? So LinkedIn, for example, quite recently added services. So it was, although it only rolled out to some people, so I could add what I think it was services, but Stephen Mather couldn't for some reason, for example. So it's one of those things that if you keep checking what access you have to different functions as they get rolled out, it might not be global, but you can utilize those. LinkedIn also provides the ability to kind of add featured links to maybe reviews that you might have or something like that. So
that's something that you, sorry to jump in, Jess, that's something that you can also set up in your Google alerts. So I have LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram just as Google alerts. So every time that there's an update, I get notified in my emails.
Brilliant. Yeah. Shannon's asked, is it worth taking down old business photos for Instagram? Is that specifically? Yeah. What do you think, Lauren?
I think it depends on what the photo is. If it's a photo of a meal option that you don't provide anymore, I'd probably still have it on there, because then perhaps your followers are going to say, oh, are you going to do this again? And then you can get more of a sense of what your customers actually want you to produce for them. So unless it's something completely wildly irrelevant to the business that you're doing now. So if you had a business where you were creating pajamas for cats 10 years ago and you're not doing it now,
Laura?
I know. And you're not doing it now, then yes, fine, let's maybe get rid of that profile. But otherwise, I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's usually good for you to have some older content on there, so at least people can kind of see how you've developed it as well. And it's an origin story, essentially.
There could also be post ideas around it, like this is one of my first posts, or there's throwback posts, aren't there? So
exactly,
as long as they're there, that's quite helpful. So my bonus, and this is really referring to what the next in this series, is review your marketing measurements. So you can do a review visually, check if you're happy with how things are going, but really the added dimension is look through Google Analytics and social media data, which I think is next week actually is what I'll be covering, because it's one of the things that has popped up as the most highly sought after in this group, because then you can see how your social media and different routes to market are working for your website. There are a load of caveats there. Just because social media isn't seen as your main bonus or main way to get contact doesn't mean that it's not working for you. We'll cover that in more detail, but if I didn't mention marketing measurements in there somewhere, people would think that I had a fever or something. So it's just got to be done.
So I would say as well that you can, for Instagram, definitely look at your insights on the mobile app. So you can't get them on a desktop site, but you can look through things on there that'll show your content. It will show you which posts you've done that are the most successful, so that you can see where you're going right and then try to replicate that further on. It'll show you the times that your audience are most active on Instagram as well, so you can actually be posting at those times as well. And it'll show you the gender split. It's all really, really comprehensive, and it's something that not very many people know about. So if you have a business profile on Instagram, look at your insights as well, because there's so much information in there that could be very, very helpful.
Excellent, thank you, Lauren. Right, next is when we're really moving into the ongoing activities that you might do once you finish a bit of housekeeping. So this is really where I love your input as well, Lauren. So managing relationships through social media. Right from the very beginning of this series, our message has been to continue to communicate. I know that yours has been too, but the focus might be just to move from trying to sell or the hard sell or the promotional stuff, more brand building, relationship, building that know, like and trust, so that when people recover, they do know you better and they have a more positive opinion of you. So that's really the overall focus. What that means is that your type of post may be slightly different, and I know a few people who just don't want to post anything because they just feel so awkward. They don't know, they want to mention the elephant in the room, but they also feel like everybody's mentioning the elephant in the room. So the types of posts at the moment, what have you found to be working really well, Laura?
I think the things that are working really well are the posts where people are actually serving their followers rather than trying to sell to them. I think the main thing about social media is it isn't a sales platform in normal times, or it's not meant to be a sales platform. It's an opportunity for you to actually have conversations with your followers, with your potential customers, with your potential referral partners, and it's a chance for you to showcase a bit of your personality, bit of the personality behind the brand, without having "buy me" stamped on your forehead. So it's very much, it's an opportunity for you to serve your audience. And I think sorry, go on.
Well, so in the first book we really talked about, for some people that's kind of difficult to know what to talk about, because let me just try and remember actually the way that I put. No, I'm not. It's not going to come up. If you're thinking about how to change your communications at the moment, think about the value that you do provide, because it's not necessarily what you sell. A good example is if you think about a beauty salon at the moment. People it's very physical thing. You have to be in there. It's normally if you're doing brow tidies and nail appointments and stuff like that. However, part of the value that going into a beauty salon provides is a sense of community, care, feeling nurtured, looking after yourself, a bit of luxury, revitalization, and there's an awful lot of value that's there that is not actually what they may think they're selling. It's not what they make the money from. So the opportunity on social media is to continue with the community, continue giving advice, continue to ask questions and care how people are doing, because it's almost one's piano teacher and you almost end up like part counsellor, part piano teacher. I'm not sure what percentage really it is. I think the same happens for hairdressers and for beauty technicians.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of an example of that's the relationship, and that's the value, and that's the value that they should always show over social media, and the personality they should always show.
Absolutely. And I think something that a lot of beauty businesses could be doing at the moment is a kind of, okay, so normally you come to us for self-care, you can't come to us at the moment, but we still want to make sure that you get that time to yourself. So we're going to show you, how to make a face mask from the stuff in your cupboards, or we'll show you how to convert your bathroom into a spa-worthy experience. Just something like that. That is, it gives people that sort of takeaway idea, so they've actually got something that they can do. And we always feel better when we do something. At the moment, if we're kind of here going, oh yeah, I mean, my hair's not very good and I haven't done my eyebrows or anything, then if you can, if you've got an instructional video from the person that you normally go to who does these things for you, then you've still got that sense of connection with them, and they're still showing you that they're prioritizing the experience that you get. And
there's I've seen a combination of different things. So for example, maintenance stuff, so how to kind of maintain. Obviously, hairdressers, the meme is how to cut your hair at home. Don't.
Yes.
Is normally the thing. So particularly if you've got a layered or mine, it's a bit different because it's longer, but I'm still not going to do it. I'll just wait.
Headscarves are my favourite friend at the moment.
Well, they look good. So this is the thing, is you wouldn't know that you're waiting for the hairdresser. It just suits you. But that's the kind of thing that your hairdresser might actually suggest. That's what to do while you're waiting. I've seen some great tips from beauticians, for example, where they're saying, right, you're probably getting to the point where your nails are growing out, so here's how to safely remove them at home. Here are our favourite products that we recommend for that spa-like experience. I think a really good example would be, I haven't seen this so far, but we have to do the hand washing frequently, need to wash for 20 minutes. Make that into a more enjoyable experience with a luxurious soap that is moisturising and antibacterial. Treat it as a massage or an opportunity to massage your hands. It can be a very relaxing experience, especially when teamed with a product like a matching lotion, for example. So that's a way of taking something that is very of the moment, very conscientious, and putting a pampering experience to it. So that's just an example with a very physical business that you would imagine it would be impossible to continue. So just to reiterate Laurent's point about social media is always a brand building experience, always about really building a relationship. When I talk about marketing measurements, a lot of what we do talk about is seeing what sources of traffic lead to the highest conversions, whatever conversion ends up being for you. And social media, you should never expect to be that high, because that's not the purpose. Unfortunately, it means that sometimes it doesn't get proper credit for its place. But actually the focus at the moment needs to be these brand building exercises. Really. So, as far as
social media is it's the warm fuzzies. It's that sense of, oh, that was really nice, or oh, that made me feel really good, and that you can't measure it. There's no way for you to kind of track how that then impacts on somebody's day and how it impacts on the people around them, because you've put them in a good mood. But it's it often gets called sort of pink and fluffy, but it's the niceness of it as well, and it's not something that you can measure with analytics, but it's so important.
But it is the thing that will have an impact on your conversion rate.
Absolutely.
You just won't know about it. When they do come to follow a LinkedIn ad or a promotional, that'll be the thing that makes them push them over the edge and buy, because I've got a good feeling about you. So there's also moving on to finding inspiration. I think there's lots of different places that you can go. Part of the thing that you're covering next Thursday is actually going to be on having creative or a creative exercise, which is absolutely brilliant. There are a lot of different places to go. So I think Google Alerts was one of the things that I mentioned anyway. Last week we talked about personas. This was the one where we talked to Julie Futcher, who is a sales expert. And actually, if you do your personas, which I harp on about, then part of that exercise is understanding what's going on in your customers' heads, what they care about, the value that you do provide, and that can then produce your social media content. So being driven by what it is that your clients normally would come to, and how you might do that in another way. Is there anything as far as finding inspiration for posts that you want to add, Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, actually spend some time on your social media, see what the people who are following you are sharing, and see what they find interesting, and then try to cater to that. Or it could be that you have a personal value, so I'm a feminist killjoy, yay. But that has a reflection in a lot of the social media that I consume and that I share as well. So you find the things that are interesting to you, but also find the things that are interesting to your followers, particularly from a business perspective, because you want to be resharing content that is going to resonate with the people who are following you as well.
One of our clients has taken this opportunity to do some research on their past customers and has sent out a poll. Within that poll, we're also asking for testimonials. So it's a marketing exercise at the same time. So you get to get special insight into your to help build your personas. You might already think that you know your clients very well, but this just gives you a confirmed, yes, this is what I got out of it. And then you get testimonials, case studies, and etc. It also means that you may find it easy to ask for a referral if you get a particularly glowing reference and an opportunity to improve. You might even get them to put it on Google reviews, for example, or Facebook or whatever. So running polls and research at this time is a particularly useful use of your time.
The other thing that you can do if you're stuck for ideas as to what you should actually be sharing is ask.
Yeah.
Ask your followers what content they want to see from you. Ask them what might be helpful. You can do ask me anything sessions, so those are quite good to do live. So you could be saying, okay, I'm going to do a live post on Friday at this time. It's going to be an ask me anything. If you have any questions that you want me to answer, just either send them to me in advance or show up on the live post and we'll talk through it then. So, and from that as well, you're going to get more ideas as to the kind of content that your clients and your followers want to see from you.
Excellent. What to share and what not to share, and do's and don'ts. Lauren, I've seen you talking about staying positive, and that's been, I think, a really important message. Do you want to kind of share that with the group?
Yeah. And so I think at the moment, obviously, everybody's in the same boat. A lot of people's businesses have been put on pause, and it's not helpful to try to turn a crisis into a competition. So you've got some people going, oh, I've lost X amount of custom this week, I've lost X amount of money. It's not helpful, and it's not for your audience. It's essentially the only response that you can elicit from someone from that is for them to go, oh, poor you, I'm so sorry. And that's the complete opposite as to what you should be doing with your social media, because it is not about you. It is about your followers, about your audience. And we're very, very good at getting caught up in the negative, and you can end up in this massive spiral from it. And it can be very difficult to actually interrupt that. Yeah. So it's almost better to start positive and keep it up there, rather than going, oh, I had a bad day, therefore my social media is going to go ooh, down here, and I'm going to tell everybody how miserable I am. Because it's not an excuse
to be positive, actually, if anything, to be like, right, okay, well, smile until it's real, I think, so, or fake it till you make it, sort of, just for that particular time. Just to support what you're saying, I have tried to spend time around what did they call
radiators,
not yet,
radiators rather than drains,
because it's had a massive difference to the friend, family member and leader that I can be at this time, who I spend time with. So trying to be positive where you can be. I also, if you think about behavioural science, if you say statistics kind of find that if you say, oh, this is what everybody else is doing, because we're such social animals, if you say, oh, nobody's going ahead with doing work at the moment, then that client who was thinking about doing work with you is like, oh, well, nobody else is, so I'm not going to either. People will more often not do what the tribe does. What you probably want to make people feel like is like they're the odd one out by not going ahead and doing business with you. So I'm not saying you lie, because if that's not true, then don't say it, because that would be unethical or inauthentic. But think about what message you are sending by telling people a negative group experience. And I think there's a lot of people who aren't maybe going ahead because they're noticing that other people aren't doing work, and then that's making them think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't do too. We're such tribal animals. So really think about what you're doing accidentally, if you do accidentally share a negative message. The other thing is, I've referred in probably the last 2 episodes to how anxiety is the enemy of creativity, and if you are in a very anxious place, it's very difficult to find inspiration and find posts to share. and also to change your business and be more creative with your business, and anything else that you may need creative problem solving skills for at this time. So even though I'm not a wellness coach and I've got no business kind of talking about meditation or anything like that, what I would encourage you to do is to use those resources, because your business will benefit from you being in a better place mentally and emotionally. You'll be able to be a problem solver, be creative, find those social media posts that actually do engage your audience, and people will also want to be around you at this time more than they will be anyone else. So anything you want to add to the do's and don'ts?
Yeah, there have been
those like a whole other presentation.
Good lord, there have been some proper clangers in the last couple of weeks.
Wetherspoons, anybody?
Yeah, Wetherspoons, congratulations. That was good. Virgin as well. You're a billionaire, but you want people to take unpaid leave. So that's good for the personal brand. And I would say, particularly at the moment, whatever your political views are, do not post about Boris Johnson. Don't glorify the fact that he's in ICU. Don't sort of start an argument with people saying, well, he's got a family and everything, he's a human being, because of course. So it's not worth getting into arguments with people about it. Everybody's emotions are running very, very high, and when we're in a high emotional state, our ability to be reasonable about things just disappears. So the tiniest thing, it could be that someone looked at you funny when you coughed at outside your front door, that can suddenly in our brains become, oh my god, I'm going to get, people are going to be chasing me with torches and pitchforks, because we're just not, at the moment, we're not capable of making those differences or discerning those differences. So don't put it on social media, guys. If you can't, start
journaling. A private book that goes in the door.
Exactly. Or if you phone your mum and rant to her,
or your sister,
but don't put it on your social media.
No, exactly.
There's some people who are talking about they're talking about trolls at the moment, and they're going, oh yeah, well, I got trolled so many times this week, and actually, thanks, because you've just upped my engagement rates, and all this, this kind of humble brag idea. But essentially, if you're being trolled, just ignore them. Do not feed the trolls, because there is no way to slag someone off without looking like a complete dick yourself. So all of these posts that are like, oh yeah, no, trolls, you've helped me, don't do it, because it's not attractive.
So one of the things that we've had a few questions around is if somebody is getting negative reviews or negative comments, and how to respond to them, and how to, because it is generally a thing that happens anyway, where people, maybe someone's competition, they may be adding negative reviews or negative comments, but particularly at the moment, I think some people who have businesses that have stayed open, for example, with careful restrictions on, depending on how essential their business is. So generally, how would you recommend that people deal with negative responses? Negative comments and reviews?
I would say the first thing is don't respond straight away. Don't respond immediately in the moment, because you'll get it wrong. Because it might be that you're feeling personally attacked, even though it's more about your business, or it's about your business behaviours. So I would take a step back from it. Don't respond when you're angry. Just general advice in life as well as in business. Don't respond when you're feeling really, really cross about something. And what I like to do is I like to actually draft a response, and I do that in the Notepad application, so I can't accidentally press enter and then have this really visceral response to someone who probably hasn't quite merited it. And then I just do your response, give it 20 minutes, give it half an hour, go and make yourself a cup of coffee, go and stand outside, come back to your response, and then reread it and go, actually, is that fair? Or is it just my immediate reaction? And there's a brilliant acronym that we used to use when I worked in restaurants, when I used to manage those and used to deal with so many complaints on a daily basis. And it's called BLAST. So it's, you believe the person who said that there's a problem, you're listening to them, so you're showing that, you know, even if they're completely wrong, you're still valuing their opinion, you're still making them feel heard. You ascertain exactly what the problem is, and then you solve the problem, and then you thank them for their feedback.
That's nice.
Well.
That's nice.
And that's
a nice response.
Yeah, that's a fairly easy structure to follow. And I think as well, if you've if someone's sent you quite a long complaint where they've had several points in it, I always suggest responding to their points in turn and actually saying as well, okay, well, you know, thank you for that feedback. I'd like to respond to your points in turn, because again, that way you're keeping it very, very structured, and it's that slight sense of formality that says, I am taking this seriously, because I'm not instantly in your face going, well, you're wrong. Why would you say that? It's a lie.
I think it's particularly difficult with some of the people on the call if they're running their own business. It is a very personal thing. So I think that point about emotion, trying to wait till the emotion is at least reduced or handled before going back to it, it is a great one. I think it is important fundamentally to respond, whereas some people don't, and that's part of the reason why the audit of your online presence is important, because you may find reviews that you weren't maybe monitoring and haven't been responded to. I think making sure that your responses are in the right tone of voice that represents your brand well, whether that means that you are the right person to write it or somebody else might need to help you with that. Definitely get them proofread, because that's a way to not to come across as unprofessional in any situation, but particularly there. I think the BLAST acronym that you're talking about, it's as important that the person, remember that the person in a restaurant, if somebody has a complaint at the table, then that can be very private. But when you're dealing with online reviews, you are as much communicating to everybody else who can see this as the person who has sent a review or has written a negative comment. A lot of the time, somebody who writes a negative comment, if they are being unreasonable, then they look ridiculous. And they can undermine themselves quite easily if they're not reasonable. And then you responding, you kind of diffuse that. However, what we also suggest is trying to get the conversation off the online platform as quickly as possible. So comment on it in order to defend yourself in a reasonable and professional way, but then move the conversation into another place. Another thing that we deal with is sending feedback surveys, and this can be a nice way to encourage positive reviews and reduce negative reviews. It's to send feedback surveys as part of what you do with your work. So it might be before your invoice stage or after your invoice stage or every 6 months to regular customers. And what you get there is an opportunity to improve what you do anyway. So if they've got any negative feedback, they'll put it there rather than disappearing. If they've got any positive feedback, then you get to use that as testimonials. The very last stage in the in a survey, depends on what you do exactly, would be to say, would you recommend us to friends or family? And if they say yes, then you put a link to then you can redirect them to a different page than if they say no. If they say yes, then give a link to fill out the survey, to put that testimonial on Facebook or Google Reviews or wherever it is that is TripAdvisor, wherever is good for you. If they say no, then offer to talk to them to see if you can solve the problem, whether that means a partial refund, whether that means the next thing free, whether it's whatever it is, but offer to talk to them, because otherwise if somebody doesn't feel heard, that's normally when they start ranting online. Absolutely. So it's a really good way to diffuse and reduce negative online reviews. So thanks for the blast, that's a brilliant one.
Oh, you're welcome.
So we're just about coming to the end actually, and then we'll move on to Q&A. So get your Q's ready and we'll get our A's ready. But just first of all,
my A is always ready.
So remember that the future dates are available at the idealmarketingcompany.co.uk/crisis communications. Future dates, email, newsletter sign up, and videos of past ones. And it's every Wednesday at 11 AM for 12 weeks as it stands, no matter what happens with the lockdown. Then this is the third week. So let's stop the screen share.